All right, well, there might be one or two more who sneak in after we get going here, but thank you all for joining. This is the webinar to walk you through the registration process. There's going to be a couple of wrinkles as we go along because there's different collaboration groups represented this year, and we've updated the website, so that will also add some challenge to finding your way around. But otherwise, it's very similar to other years. So I'll try and point out the differences as we come across them, but let's get going. I'm going to start by sharing that screen. All right. So you should now be able to see the CUSC website, and it is just CUSC-CCREU.ca. That is the URL for that. You can go in. For if there are any francophones among us, you can change the language of the site up there, and that will also change the language of the registration form. If you'd been visiting the site previously, you would have noticed that this piece in the middle here just got added because registration has been formally opened. So to be registering for this, you basically click on this button to get going. And that's what the registration page is. And now I know we have some people from Alberta colleges and polytechnics here. There's a special, somewhat less elaborate registration form for you. You should click this button here to go to that that registration form instead of filling out the full one for members and non-members in the university survey. So click on that button and you will get there. Couple of other things. If you want to be able to save drafts of your form as you go along, you need to have an account on the site. Many of you have created that already, but if you haven't, there's a link here to create that account. Or if you have, then you get to log in at this link here. I'm going to do that because that makes my life a little bit easier. So let me fill that in. You can set up two-factor authentication on your account. So that's what I've done. So there's my two-factor authentication, and then I'll go back to that form. We also have some other links down the side here. We have a link to the procedures manual. The procedures manual is all online. So this will open up another tab to look at that in. You can also download the survey instrument itself. You can just download the module if that's the part you're interested in. For those who are members, the copy of the current data licensing and membership agreement is here. A copy of the privacy agreement template if you require that with PRA for handling your sample. And for Alberta institutions who are participating in the collaboration for the province, there's a special document of instructions, and you can download that from here. It will also get emailed to you once you complete your registration form. So you will probably end up having that twice, but better twice than none at all. So that's the instructions for this year. The most important thing in there are the samples and the rules for who goes in what sample. So Alberta institutions, you are going to want to have that. The same document is available when you go to this link for colleges and polytechnics, so you should be fine. All right, so getting on to the actual registration, the form here is pretty straightforward. You fill in your department or your unit, and then you can fill in addresses for the institution first. You can have 2 lines for that if you want. And province is what we want there. And then the postal code. And now that I've logged in, you can see down here, there's a next button that goes to the next page of this form. You can also just hit save draft and it will validate all the fields on that page and save that draft for you. If you don't click that and you click next, it's saving the draft anyway. So the save draft would just be if you want to save that page and then come back and edit some more on that page. So primary contact name, if you've logged in, you've got an account, it tries to fill in your information in here. So that part is taken care of for you. Sadly, that's only a couple of fields. With phone numbers, we do want to have area codes in there. The primary contact is the person who's going to be principally responsible for sending in the sample and will be the first person we contact. So this person does need to be working directly with the survey. The secondary contact is the person we contact if the first contact is not available. So I'm going to fill that in. And it's the same for both of them, that you want to have the name, you want to have the email address, and you want to have both those people in there. And the phone number is helpful too. Then there's the financial contact, and we do need this. It's important for dealing with invoicing, and for Alberta institutions and those who are participating in the MPHEC collaboration, you may in the end not need to have any financial information, but because we don't know that at this point in the registration form, we need to have this section filled in as well. All right, so there's my my financial contact. So you've got three sets: primary contact, secondary contact, and the financial contact. All right, this is a good place to mention a couple of things. One is, as we go through different elements in this registration, there are these buttons that are links to different parts of the procedures manual that are relevant to the particular question. In this case, it's asking about whether you're participating as a CUSC member or a non-member. CUSC members need to sign a data licensing and membership agreement. They have to do that before we release the data to you. And members also get the national results. So all the closed-ended questions for the survey for all participants, or all member participants in the survey, you get all of that. And there's a few other reports and so on that you get as a member that you can't get as a non-member, but you can participate as a non-member, and that means you'll basically get your own data, your own reports, but that's it. So I'm going to leave this as a member because in Alberta, the province is paying for our membership, so I'm happy about that. It's also, so you'll see some dollars here. Alberta institutions can take those with a grain of salt till we get to the end of the process. You only have to pay for extra things that you order. The same is likely true with MPHEC participants. So because that changes a lot of things, we do ask about your collaboration participation at the beginning of this. If we change that to yes, then you get this question here about which collaboration you're a part of. There are two of which we're aware. If you are creating a different collaboration, you could choose other. We would need to know who else is in that collaboration group. So there'll be some follow-up from that, but I'm going to choose the Alberta one, and then I'll move on from this page. So the total population of the students who meet the definition of the standard sample is what we're looking for here. So in this case, it's first year students. At this point, if you're not sure about this number, please provide an estimate. We'll nail this down eventually, but we do weight the responses in the survey, and so this number is really important to that calculation in weighting the final results. I'm going to really estimate and just put it there. And I'm going to mark it as an estimate so that we know that we have to confirm that later. Total number of students who are going to be in our standard sample. The standard sample is students who are in an undergraduate degree and who are in their first year of study. So for us, I'm going to put that in as about 300. Um, you can add a special sample. Now, this is true for everybody. You can decide you want to really focus on students in a particular program. So you're going to oversample for a particular program. Or maybe you want to ensure that you're getting all your international students. So you're going to oversample for that. You could put those into a special sample. In the Alberta Collaboration Group, this is where uh, most of the students that the province wants us to survey that don't meet that initial definition, this is where they want us to put them. I was looking, I'm not sure we've got people from an enormous institution. It is also possible that you're not, like at King's, we're small, so we're doing a census. Every student who meets the criteria will be included here. If you're large, you can choose to only survey a sample of 1,000. Um, not many institutions do that these days, but that is also an option for you. So how many students in my special sample? I'm going to guess that there's 100. So then you get the survey results package, and you want to take this number, which is the sum of the two samples, and figure out which category you fall in. And again, there are prices here for Alberta institutions. Those don't matter, but for others, this is where you're beginning to build this. And this is for the survey results package. You get most of the things here. If you want to explore what some of those are, you can go through these links to the procedures manual to determine what all you get. So there are some options in that survey results package. You can receive the results in English or French. It's your choice. Um, There, a little bit later on, you'll see some options for some reports receiving them in whichever language you didn't choose here. So if you need, because you're a bilingual campus, to have results in both languages, that is still possible. There is a small cost to that. The next question is about when you would like to be invoiced for this. This has to do with whatever your fiscal year is and getting things on the right side of the boundary so that you get your invoices paid out of the right budget. The next box is if you are using student institutional email addresses to distribute the invitations, which is the default. That's the normal way of doing things. If there are things that our contractor PRA needs to do so that they'll get past your firewall, if you could tuck in a block of text here to describe that, that would be great. It's very helpful in making sure we don't end up with things being blocked at the firewall, which happens more and more these days. So it's very useful to have that. The survey dates are about when you want it to start, and you need it to start between January 6th and March 24 to be able to get it to run a reasonable amount of time before we close the door at the very end on the 7th of April. That's going to end. So you just click in here and you pick when you want it to start. I'm going to pick the 21st of January 2025. And it sometimes takes some begging and pleading. So I'm going to let it go until the 18th to get the student responses into that. The next ones are for your spring break when that happens. So it's very helpful if you put in the dates of the spring break because we don't want to send out reminders when students are on that break. So in Alberta, most of us are taking the week where Family Day falls in there. So that's what I'm picking in here. But whatever your break actually is, that's when you should put that in, and that will be to the 21st. The next question is about whether your institution is using incentives. Let me just pause to talk about incentives for a little bit. It is by far the most effective way of improving your response rates is to use incentives. This year, CUSC is also experimenting with national incentives. So there will be an incentive if you choose to participate, and we'll see the sign up for that a little bit later, in that national incentive to see if that makes a difference to response rates. If you're in a collaboration group, at least in Alberta, there's also provincial incentives. So there's multiple layers. This question is about your particular institutional incentives, and we always use that. So we are going to have a couple of draws for that, and you can choose how that works. Now, if you have, if you're giving one away every week and you have multiple weeks, you get two with the basic survey package. But if you're going over two, then there's a cost of $50 per draw to make that work. There are a couple of ways you can get the draw happening. You can have PRA do a random draw for you. That absolves you of any responsibility if somebody suspects you chose a funny person. But you can also just have PRA send you the list of people who have responded, and you make your own random draw. So you can choose whichever one of those you want. You also can choose what dates you want to have your draws on. So as I said, we're going to do an early bird draw. So we're starting in January. I want on that first Thursday in February to have one draw happen then, and then I'm going to pick another draw, and I'm going to have that happen right at the end. I'll actually make it the day after the survey closes. So you can pick your dates. If you need to add, you can add things. If you make a mistake, even though it's a little off the screen here at this resolution, there is a button to delete those dates if you make a mistake. You can choose, and in Alberta, we get a whole bunch of reminder emails with the provincial collaboration, so I would choose none on this, but you get 2 email reminders by default. If you want to have more, you can add 1 or 2 to that. This just creates a little bit of extra work for PRA, so they have to tee up those reminders. It is also possible, once your survey is running, to make a judgment call partway through. Depending on how your responses are going, maybe you want to add this after the fact. But at registration time, at least we're going to choose none. You can choose what you like. It is possible to add questions to the survey that are custom to your institution. This is in addition to any that might come from a collaboration group. So you don't have to worry about it. If you're just using the collaboration group questions, that's fine. But some of you may have additional questions that you want to add. If you said yes here, then you get to estimate the number of questions. And we have to get those questions submitted to us 4 weeks prior to the administration of the survey so that we can vet them, so that we know that they don't duplicate, they fit in the right section, that they fit with the intent of the survey. All of those things are additional questions committee will review. In King's case, we're going to say no for all of that. Then you can have some optional additions. Now, since I signed up as a member, I'm seeing some of these that are labeled members only. If you sign up as a non-member, those options will just disappear off of this list. You can choose comparison reports, and that's where you choose other institutions who hopefully are participating that you want to be compared to. And you can get those in, you can get a report in English or French. In other words, you get one language, or you can ask for those reports in both languages. It doubles the cost. We're not going to get those, but that's useful. If you're getting the data, you can kind of roll your own comparisons. But if you don't have the bandwidth to do that analytical work, then this is a way of getting that same information. You can ask for institutional data tables with tests of significance added. So some like to have significance tests added to what they're doing. And so this is, again, a way, if you don't have the analytical bandwidth to do it, you can get PRA to do this for you. Again, you can do those in one language or both languages. Executive report, sometimes it's handy to have somebody else write an executive report. And so again, you can do that in one or both languages. You can get PRA to categorize the open-ended questions. There are open-ended questions and they'll charge you 65 cents for each respondent who's completed an open-ended question. So if they didn't respond, then you don't get charged for that, but you can ask them to categorize those open-ended questions for you. All of our reports are delivered electronically. So everything comes via an FTP site. If you want to have a paper copy printed for you of these reports, you need to request it because we do not produce that by default. Now, most of us have printers, so this is not a super popular option, but some of you may wish to add $50 to for each of these reports that you might be ordering. The learning management system, you can get a list of links that you can use to put into your portal or to your LMS to invite students to participate in the survey and to use for sending reminders. At King's, we do this. We put it into our student information system, the portal that students see. And so that's a reasonably effective tool for us. Other people have figured out ways of putting this in Moodle or other LMSs, and you could use that as well. This is where you can get your quick facts or your institution long report, or for members, comparing the quick facts to groups. You can get those in the language that you didn't order the rest of the package in. So you can do that for each of those three. It's $150 or $100 for each of those because it takes some effort to produce that. All right, the experiment. The experiment this year is that offering large national incentives will improve our response rates. There's no cost to you to participate in this one, but it's a little different than some of the other experiments. We are, in this experiment, we're going to use 50% of your sample if you sign in. If you don't want to participate, please choose opt out, and then none of your sample people will be included in this experiment. But for 50% of them, if you choose that, half of them will be included in that national incentive experiment. The module this year is student housing. And so we're beginning to explore what questions about students' current living situations, what their preferences are, what their plans are for the coming year. Again, there's no cost for this module. And so most people participate in this. But if you really don't want this, you may have already surveyed on this particular topic. You could choose no. I'm going to leave that at participating in the module. If you want to see the module questions, you can click that link there. All right, believe it or not, we are 24 minutes in. It's probably been 23 that I've been filling this out. And if I didn't talk, it would be even shorter, but we're right at the end of this process. You can add any additional comments or other things that you want to include in here. So you have this free-form entry box. GST or HST, it's taxed based on where you're located. So that will be added to any final cost. There's a thing about withdrawal here. You can withdraw from participation if you give us at least 2 weeks notice. So if you do that, you're not going to be charged the participation fee. If you give us less than 2 weeks notice, then there is a cancellation fee that applies because we would have already done much of the programming for your institution. So we need to recoup that somehow. So now we get to head on to the next one. So this is just for your review. You get to go through, you can see all of the sections, all of your answers to the questions as you go along. There is an edit button to return to that section of the survey so that you could change your answers if you notice an error or an issue, or you just change your mind. And once you've gone through all of that, then you hit the submit button and things will happen. There we go. Now we've registered for the survey for this year. What's happening in the background is you'll get email. Somebody, Barbara Mitchell, you are asking whether this is eligible for the federal GST reduction. I really doubt it. So uh, if it is, we'll figure that out. But because the invoices are coming in March, the GST reduction will probably be done by then. At any rate, in the background, you are getting emails uh, to the primary and secondary contacts and the financial contact. Uh, if you're not in the Alberta or the MPHEC collaboration groups, that financial contact will go out. And then for the Alberta folks, as I said, the IR instructions are going to also be emailed to your primary and secondary contacts. So you will have copies of all of that to work with. All right. So I am pretty much through this process. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. If you want to raise your hand so that you can ask a question or put it in chat, that would be great. So the first question is about the timeline for sending the emails and whether you have to know that exactly or whether that can be estimated. Um, and the answer is yes. Once you register, you're working with PRA, and PRA will confirm all of the start date and reminder date, as well as the content of those emails with you, and then you would be able to change those from what you put on the registration form. Hopefully that answers your question. Uh, David is asking about participating in the national incentives. The invitation emails will need to be customized somewhat for those who are participating in the national incentives, and that's going to be a bit of an art this year. For Kings, we've always used both the provincial and our own incentives, so we're adding one more layer, but it does mean you need to be clear that here's the national program, here's the provincial program, and here's the local incentives, and you will only get that one mentioning the national program will only go to those 50% of your participants who are included in that experiment. Tony is asking if Alberta colleges are considered CUSC members for registration. So the answer is no, you're not CUSC members. That's an institutional thing. So you are all colleges and polytechnics in Alberta are participating as non-members. It's only the institutions eligible for membership who can choose to be members. To make your life easy, Tony, I took that question off of the Alberta colleges and polytechnics registration form, so you don't even have to think about it. All right. Are there any other questions? All right. For Alberta institutions, I did want to note that one thing that's changed a bit from this year compared to last year is that PRA is supplying the main support as you're developing your samples. So your first call is going to be to PRA. The department does have people identified as part of this, but in terms of workload, that's going to go to PRA. So you should be contacting them first if you get stuck. CUSC people are always happy to be of assistance as well. So admin at CUSC-CCREU.ca. That's Linda's email address, and she would be happy to steer your questions the right way for that. There's lots of help as you try and develop your samples and deal with all of the issues of communication during the survey. There is a question about the data licensing and agreement. The DLMA is an agreement that if you signed it once, and Linda might correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the University of Calgary has signed it once, it applies forever. So you don't have to re-sign every year, which is good, especially because some institutions have to send it through legal review. And so you do that once and then you're covered forever. So I'm quite sure the U of C is covered. Any other questions? All right, that's great. Well, the email address for Linda, yeah, I'll drop that into the chat, and then uh, that will hopefully you'll save the chat after the meeting. There you go. Whoops, that should be, no, there's a dot there. Hang on. All right, now that is the email address for Linda. We will be posting a recording of this to our YouTube channel, and there'll be a link to that on the website once it's ready, hopefully Friday. And so you'll be able to refer back to the video of this if you'd like. So lots of help. We're looking forward to having lots of you sign up. And if you get stuck, please feel free to get a hold of us and we can solve those problems for you. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you at a future meeting.